The fall they swore would never happen. Narcissists spend their entire lives building an illusion. Flawless. Untouchable. In control. But what happens when the mask slips? What happens when reality finally catches up? You've seen the charm. You've felt the manipulation. But very few people ever witness what comes next. Collapse. Not a dramatic meltdown, like you might expect. Something darker. Quieter. More dangerous. When a narcissist collapses, their entire false self begins to unravel. And it's not just painful for them. It can be explosive for everyone around them. Today, we're going inside the psychological breakdown narcissists never want you to see. The triggers. The behaviors. And the aftermath. Because once you understand what collapse really looks like, you'll never be fooled by their mask again. Let's begin. Point 1. The collapse trigger. Narcissistic injury. Narcissistic collapse doesn't come out of nowhere. It starts with a narcissistic injury, a blow to their carefully constructed ego. Maybe someone criticized them. Maybe a partner left. Maybe the attention dried up. Maybe reality just wouldn't cooperate. To you, it might seem small. A normal disappointment. A fair boundary. Even a joke. But to them? It's psychological warfare. Why? Because narcissists survive by clinging to a grandiose self-image, one that says, I am superior. I am admired. I am in control. When that image is challenged, their mind goes into defense mode. They can't self-reflect. They can't admit fault. So they lash out. Or implode. It's not just embarrassment. It's ego death. The injury ruptures the illusion, and without it, they feel worthless, exposed, and enraged. They'll do anything to restore the image. Lie. Smear. Self-destruct. Because to a narcissist, being wrong feels like being nothing. And that's when the collapse begins. Point 2. The behavioral breakdown. Rage, withdrawal, or revenge. When a narcissist collapses, their behavior shifts, fast, and often violently. There are usually 3 forms of collapse behavior: rage, withdrawal, and revenge. First, narcissistic rage. Explosive. Disproportionate. Terrifying. They scream. Blame. Accuse. Why? Because their illusion of control is slipping, and rage is their last-ditch effort to dominate the narrative. Second, withdrawal. The silent treatment. Vanishing. Playing the victim. They'll disappear and nurse their wounded ego, often spiraling into depression or addiction behind closed doors. It looks like shame, but it's still rooted in ego. They're not sorry. They're humiliated. Third, revenge. This one's calculated. Smear campaigns. Character assassination. They'll try to destroy your reputation, isolate you, or make you regret ever standing up to them. But beneath all this, a collapsed narcissist is terrified. They're like a dictator watching their empire fall, desperate, paranoid, and unpredictable. What's dangerous is not just their pain. It's what they'll do to avoid feeling it. And if you're close to them when this collapse hits, you might become their primary target. Point 3. The emotional core. Shame, emptiness, and identity crisis. Under the rage. Beneath the silence. Behind the revenge. There's something most people never see in a narcissist: shame. Deep, suffocating, existential shame. Because at their core, narcissists don't believe they're special. They believe they're nothing. All that grandiosity? A cover-up. All the control? A shield. So when the narcissistic mask collapses, they don't just lose admiration. They lose their entire sense of self. They don't know who they are without the applause. They don't know how to function without control. And this creates a terrifying identity crisis. They may spiral into self-loathing, anxiety, even suicidal ideation. Not out of guilt, but because they can't tolerate being ordinary. This is when some seek therapy. Others double down. But most find a new source of supply and rebuild the illusion all over again. Because to face the truth, to confront their shame, would require accountability. And for many narcissists, that's the one thing they'll never accept. Even in collapse, the illusion fights to survive. Point 5. What happens after reinvention or repeat? So what happens after the collapse? Do narcissists change? Sometimes, for a moment. They do. They may seem humble, reflective, even remorseful. But often, this is just another survival strategy, a temporary recalibration until they find a new source of validation. Because true change requires vulnerability. And narcissists see vulnerability as weakness. So, instead of healing, many choose reinvention. They build a new persona, a new partner, a new story. But the patterns? They stay the same. If they were the successful genius before, they may now become the misunderstood victim. If they were charming and seductive, they may now play the role of the wise martyr. New look. Same manipulation. They start over, not because they've grown, but because their last illusion collapsed. And they need a new one. The cycle continues, unless something radically interrupts it. That interruption is rare. Because narcissistic collapse is painful. But not always painful enough to spark real change. It's not the fall that breaks them. It's the reflection in the mirror when they finally hit the ground. And most look away. To outsiders, it looks like someone bravely picking up the pieces. To you? It's gaslighting on a public scale. It's not just damage control. It's survival through manipulation. But here's what you need to remember: the truth doesn't need an audience. And you don't need to defend yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you. Let them play their part. You stay in your peace. Recognize the fall before it hits you. Narcissistic collapse is messy, unpredictable, and often destructive. Not just to them, but to everyone caught in the blast radius. So if you see the signs, the rage, the withdrawal, the unraveling, step back. You can't fix this. You didn't cause it. And you don't deserve the fallout. What you can do is understand. Because once you recognize the collapse, you'll stop being confused by the chaos. You'll stop internalizing the blame. And you'll start reclaiming your peace. Let the narcissist rebuild their illusion. You're building something real. They collapse in silence. You rise in truth. Subscribe for more psychological deep dives on narcissism, trauma, and healing. You're not crazy. You're waking up.